Welcome to the fourth meeting, When This Is Over by ITURRI Series. So, today we have another great speaker, Magda Dziewguc, head of Google in the heart of Europe. Fantastic woman that I used to meet on flights when we were still about to fly. And she's a wonderful type of entrepreneur, open, honest, with a great sense of humor. Digital evangelist. She created a telecommunication services market for the online business companies such as Orange and Plus. Master of digital transformations, expert in the field of innovation, restructuring and building the culture of engagement and partnership. Magda runs the Central European operation of the company that we know we can ask basically any question and it will give us an answer. So it's my great pleasure to welcome our guest speaker today, and Magda will tell us that when this is over, we will be smarter. The stage is yours.
Hello, it would be great to get some questions. I've just initiated the chat, so hopefully it works and you guys can potentially connect. So as Marta said, my name is Magda. I work for Google already for a couple of years, recently for Google Cloud. And with Marta, we are the club of flying mothers. Usually we meet at the airport or in the plane. So when Marta reached out to me to talk about when this is over, I was very grateful and I'll be happy to share some of my observations. So I will be super happy to welcome you to discussion. There are a couple of points I've already highlighted in the reading, which Marta probably shared with you on the webpage when this is over. And I want to elaborate on a couple of points, but it would be really good if you guys agree, disagree, have some questions or comments. It's always better not to talk to yourself. And these days, when we are only talking to the screens, it's really great to get some human interactions. So my theory related with the when this is over leitmotif, which Marta identified, is that we will be smarter. But before I will go to we will be smarter, I think I'm gonna stay for a while with when this is over, because I think this is one of the major mistakes we may be doing these days, is that we think this will be over. So many people tend to sort of put themselves on hold. Like I know my life, it was great. I was doing a lot of great things and suddenly things have stopped. So I'm putting a pause in my life on everything I was doing, and I wait until I can click it, play again, right? Like we do when we're watching a video. So the key question that scientists all around the world are trying to answer these days, and definitely I'm not a prophet to tell you whether they are good, right, or wrong. Will this be over? What do I mean by will this be over? Like there are a couple of theories right now on how the virus will spread, how the virus will change its nature, whether the medicines or vaccines that are being developed can completely remove the problem or just address it partially. What does it mean for us for the upcoming months? So the first thing that we clearly see is that even if the over will come, it will not come suddenly. So there will be nothing like clicking play again, and we will go back to the life which we remember from the period like 6 or 8 weeks ago. Nothing like this will happen. If there will be over, we will go back very slowly. So just parts of the things or some things that we used to do 2 or 3 months ago will be allowed in the next 2 or 3 months. If this is happening, we will still have to act differently, behave differently, do things differently. So I think the key question for everyone, I'm starting from myself, I was discussing this yesterday with my team, is if we are really allowed, or if we can afford even to stay on hold, like, can we really stay on pause and wait until things are back to normal? And there is a great theory of Darwin that everyone knows, that only the species that will learn to adapt will survive. So maybe the dinosaurs long time ago, they were also hoping, you know, this is cold, but the sun will be back, right? So I will try to stand in one place and hope that it soon will start snowing and the sun will be back. So we cannot behave the way, I mean, especially in the business environments, in the places where probably most of you guys are thinking about the future of your organizations, about the future of business processes. Like, can we really put on hold the pause and wait? No, probably we need to think differently, try to find new ways, try to adapt ourselves to this changed environment. And if at the end of this process, this will be over, what a great surprise. Like, we will all be happy if things go back to what we remember from 2 or 3 months ago. But if not, it's better to be prepared. It's better to start preparing right now instead of, you know, waiting another 1 month, 2 months, 3 months until there will be more clarity. What do I mean by preparing? Preparing means that we already see a very clear trends coming with this change, which would suddenly happen. And I think based on these trends, most of the businesses can already take some actions and try to redesign the processes. So maybe after this short intro, I'll go back to Marta and ask her, do you really believe, Marta, that this will be over?
In terms of the pandemic as we know it today, probably at some point it will die down or die out. So the state of emergency that we have today, where there's so many things that we cannot predict and we're just virtually scared for our lives. I think due to the length of time that the virus is going to be with us and due to all the changes imposed at the state of emergency at some point, that will definitely be over. But all the changes that it brought upon us and the world as we know it, of course, as you say, it will not just stop one day. Some of the things will stay with us. The question is to what extent and what are they?
Yeah, so let's start from what we're doing right now. If it was like 3 or 4 months ago, we would probably be now in a very nice hotel, in a conference room, probably sitting on stage, having some kind of a panel or lecture with nice people, guests. I guess it would be customers and partner of your company, and we could have discussion. After that discussion, we could all go for a nice lunch, get to know each other, and continue networking. Instead, we are delivering more or less same content, so the same story, but via online channel. So theoretically, the same thing is happening. Like we are now talking about the problem, about potential scenarios and outcomes, but just the setup is different. Of course, less joyful, with a less potential interactions. But from the business perspective, well, it's cost efficient. Like the company can save a lot of money on doing this that way. It's actually repeatable, so you can record it and send it to everyone who couldn't participate. It's easy to access, and there's a number of related features. So let's look at one of the major industries. So one of the major industries is actually retail. And if something is working all across the globe, even with the lockdown, it's actually buying food. Like people still have to eat even when they are closed in their houses. And how, in the big cities especially, how did we use to actually eat 2 or 3 months ago? Well, one option was to go to the restaurant or a bar or some kind of sandwich bar, whatever. And the second option was to actually go to one of the shops and do the shopping. So maybe let's start from the second option. Like as I shared in my text, just last October, I was in London at a very nice conference organized by EBRD, European Bank of Restructuring and Development, and there was a keynote, a guest speaker, a professor that makes research on e-grocery. So e-grocery is actually a part of e-commerce which is focused on delivering like daily goods, like the food that we usually buy a couple of times a week. Things like, you know, milk, bread, butter, eggs, the most necessary food. And actually, during the last 10 years, all across the world, there were a number of experiments around e-grocery, and none of them, maybe apart from Ocado, which works pretty well in UK, was successful. So based on his research, he had this theory that e-grocery will never be successful, that people will always prefer to go down to actually a nearby shop, pick their bread, buy fresh stuff, because the feeling of buying fresh is worth more, and that the convenience related with e-commerce. And what happened in the last 6 to 8 weeks? Like in Poland, in Warsaw, we had a company called Frisco. And actually these days people are selling to each other the delivery slot from Frisco, because all the delivery slots are booked until the end of May. So e-grocery is suddenly here. And what does it mean? That means that many users tried it for the first time. Many people who didn't believe really in e-grocery and they had no intention to buy groceries via online channels tried it for the first time. Based on the research, it takes 6 to 8 weeks to actually make the habit something that will stay with you. So if we have all those new users trying e-groceries, well, probably many of them were surprised that the food was high quality, that it was delivered on time. Often the prices were lower because the structure of costs of these companies is different than the structure of costs of big retailers. So what does it mean to companies like Carrefour or Auchan or Lidl, all those big chains of selling majority of the food? They're probably, even when it's over, when it's back to the past, they will have to live with the fact that big chunk of their business is now with very different competition. And if you take a regular Auchan market and let's say the Frisco I've mentioned, these are two different business models. While actually Auchan needs to employ a lot of workers working in the store, Frisco is employing a lot of robots and a lot of code to predict and identify what will be the basket of Marta or Magda. And they employ a lot of couriers to deliver it to our places. So they don't need 100 locations in big city. They probably need 1 or 2 locations. It can be in the outskirts. And they don't need to pay a big rent. So they can probably afford less space also for storage. And they can get more fresh stuff if they don't keep them in the magazines, not knowing who will buy them. So what does it mean from the consumer perspective? Actually, we're getting more fresh stuff when we want it, cheaper, without standing in the queues, and in the COVID-19 environment, with less probability that we will catch the virus once we're choosing the fruits. So I don't think that we will go out of it. I think this trend will be growing, and I think it will change the way people buy groceries for good. Many users who tried e-grocery will not go back at the same scale to the traditional shopping. How about you, Marta? We spoke yesterday when you were actually driving to buy some food, so you still go in person.
Actually, I still go in person, but that was going to a local market. So I still have this feeling at the back of my head, you know, if I want to buy fresh flowers, I'd rather go there because that's the environment I know. But it also, you know, now going to a local market to shop is the kind of adventure you're going to have daily, and that's it. Coming back to the data-driven shopping, because I have one thing at the back of my head. 2 years ago, Amazon bought Whole Foods in the US, and now they're actually thinking about opening more brick and mortar stores. So there is still, after 2 years, there is still a necessity of having some kind of a traditional store. And then another thing, consumption and the data-driven buying, you know, the thing that is super scary at times is that when you did window shopping at a shopping street, the advertisements were not targeted directly at you. But right now, if you do online shopping and somebody's good in Google Ads, that thing will hunt you for weeks. So it's much better. It's in the old times, the lady would not run around the street chasing you as a consumer. The ads will do that now because they are exactly profiled to what you've been looking at. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let's look at the fashion industry, which is probably even in more difficult situation, because at least people can go and buy grocery, but you cannot go and try different dresses, even if you want it. So the only option you have is to buy them online. But, you know, I believe that for those clothes, fashion and shoes thing, the best measurement is actually your behavior. So in the past, we all used to go out to malls and maybe, you know, just go from shop to shop and wait until a dress or a shirt or something will call you. This is how I used to excuse myself. So I was saying this dress was really calling me and he was waiting here for me. But this is impulse shopping. So like, you know, it's like you see it, you like it. You don't think if you need it, actually. If you can afford, you're just buying it because you like it. So how many of us later on opens the wardrobe and think like, I have nothing to wear? Because majority of your shopping is this impulse shopping. So you didn't really think through whether you need it, whether you will wear it, whether there's something you will use, but you just liked it that single moment. So from that perspective, actually buying clothes online is much better defined. So when you are looking at things, the algorithm is measuring, you know, how long do you stay, how long do you click, like what do you click, do you look at different pictures, what size are you looking at? The algorithm knows very well which colors you like. And the algorithm can actually, if you're buying a lot, learn how you repeat your shopping. So let's say you're a fan of dark t-shirts and you enjoy buying dark t-shirts. And at some stage, the algorithm will understand whether you like V-neck or you like something different, short sleeve, long sleeves. And the more you buy online, actually, the better clothes you will get as a recommendation. And me personally, I started to buy stuff for myself and for my kids online some time ago. And these days I see that the stuff that I used to buy traditional way, like, you know, I like that dress and I bought it. Well, there is a number of dusts on these clothes and I never use them. And those that I bought online, actually I keep on using them. So from the efficiency point of view, probably my money spent on the online shopping of clothes have better return on investment than actually the money spent on the clothes in the past. I don't know how about your experience, Marta.
Well, actually, the last weeks of lockdown have brought to my attention the fact that actually I don't need anything. I've got too much stuff. So I'm not one of the people who has gone on a binge shopping experience for the last weeks. I was throwing things out and getting rid of stuff. But I have two questions here. The first one is, probably when this is over, things will be different, but how do you know which changes will become permanent and which will come back to a normal situation? So that was one thing. And then the second one refers to the e-grocery shopping. So your example of e-grocery could motivate ITURRIers to put many efforts in e-safety. We are a safety company by our DNA. Do you see the market of health and safety very different? Or is there any information from the pharmaceutical market that maybe is a bit related to ours? Are there e-pharmacies booming now? So these were the two, kind of related a bit.
Yes, I think, you know, let's start from the first question. Like, definitely we are now in a world that is smarter, and what we observe, like if you just turn any news, is that suddenly science is getting back its authority, because you see actually top doctors, top scientists, top data analytics working head to head with governments, with the ministers to actually predict what's coming. And even if you open social media, suddenly in the Facebook you see much less cats and you see much more graphs. Because people are sharing data, insights about COVID, you know, how many cases, what's the speed, when the line will be fluttering. So I think that the good thing is that the predictions about the future are more probable than in the past, that it's more data-driven, science-driven than actually intuition-driven. And I think it's a good trend for all of us, because once the governments are taking decisions about maybe releasing the lockdown a little bit and giving people more freedom these days, this is usually a data-driven decision, not, you know, a political or emotional decision, which is actually good for our safety. And that takes me to the second question. Because actually one of the biggest revolution that happened in the last 8 weeks is actually in the telemedicine, and e-pharmacies is actually part of this. For many years, actually, it was, I would say, an area that digital couldn't crack because of the regulations, a number of regulations. These are sensitive data. There was a story that the contact between a patient and a doctor requires intimacy. It has to be a very special meeting. Emotions are important. The feeling of comfort and safety is important. Until COVID-19 hit us, and it turned out that actually doctors and nurses are scarce resources. And we need to protect them, and we need to create a model in which they can still provide help, but not get the virus. So, for example, in Poland, majority of the contact between the doctor and the patient is now happening via digital channels, whether it's via telephone or whether this is via video conference. This is the first contact before the hospital is being considered. And myself, I had my little son sick a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't know he had a high fever, so I really had to identify whether this is a virus or bacteria. So one of my friends recommended to me that I can do a CRP test myself, because nobody will help me at the usual and traditional places. So I have ordered it. It arrived in my house. I got this new skills of measuring CRP in the blood of my son. And as a result, I was super happy because it was a bacteria. And I think people like me, many people tried for the first time to do some kind of a medical treatment with the online part of the process. And from now on, I've already ordered a similar set for my parents and sent it to them. And in the future, I will probably use these much more than in the past. So I think it's here. And for ITURRIs, this means that you will have to secure different type of employees. Maybe less those who are on the shop floor working with incoming customers, but more those that are actually in front of the screens or discussing with the customers, users on the electronic channels. This is different type of security, but still security is necessary.
Okay, then we have another question. What do you think? How will the businesses look like after COVID-19? Will we only go to online contacts, or after the isolation, will we still try to prefer face-to-face contacts?
Well, I'm actually personally super happy that we have this opportunity to test it, because in the past there were lots of discussions about, you know, the workplace of the future, whether it will be 100 digital. When it will be 100 digital, is this the right direction for us or not the right direction? And actually right now, me personally, I see that it's less joy. I mean, we're doing the same thing, right? But if we had this opportunity to see each other during the panel discussion, which normally it would be so much more pleasant for me to simply feel your presence, to shake your hand, you know, to have a coffee together, laugh together, because this social interaction is the main source of our joy and happiness in life. So it's not only about I tell you what I think, you ask me a couple of questions and then we're done, but it's also some kind of energy that I take from you and you take from me when we physically meet. So I think COVID-19 and the fact that we are working only digital these days is making us consciously want to go back to some of the forms of working which we know from the past. I really want to go to the office, even though, you know, it turned out I don't have to, and this office is not necessary because I do the same things from home. But I really want to go to that office, and I want to spend time with people from my team. And one thing that will be different, and I also write more about it in the text that I've shared with you, is that one of the major showstoppers for digital workplace and working from home was the fact that employers didn't have enough of trust for their employees. And when I had some executives visiting us at Google, they were often saying like, well, how do you not measure how long actually people stay in the office? You don't measure working hours. I mean, you have to measure working hours. If we allowed it to our employees, let's say at Benko or telcos, that they for sure would cheat us, and we have no control over them working. But look what happened. Like, they had no choice. 2 months ago, whether you are CEO of a telco or CEO of the bank, you could close your bank or close your telco, or you can tell your people, well, actually, I want you to work from home. And there is no trust question. You have to trust your employees. So what they've learned and what they could pilot over this COVID-19 situation is, if their employees are still working when they are home and they are not supervised physically by the manager looking at them. Look at telcos. We have just learned that actually our world is impossible without telcos. Like internet connectivity is worth everything. We wouldn't be able to work. So if these people working from home wouldn't be able to provide us internet connection, well, we wouldn't be talking right now. So I think many executives and many top managers had the opportunity to see that, well, their employees work great, and actually the productivity went up and efficiency went up when they were working from home. So most probably the nature of work, the nature of workplace will change after this is over, and employees will get much more flexibility on deciding for themselves when they work from office and when they work from home.
Well, this is a hot topic right now, because you have these fantastic software where people are informed that they have to sit in front of their desktops because their image will be scanned after 15 minutes and every 15 minutes or every 10 minutes, just to check whether they are in front of the computer or doing somewhere else. So this is also one of the things you didn't know existed 6 weeks ago, and now they're selling that kind of software. So there must be people around the world who think that it's a brilliant solution. But then also, secondly, because you said always that in Google you have the office which people visit because it sets a kind of a benchmark for fun office to be in, and it's fantastic and it's colorful and it's wonderful, but people really don't need to be there. So what is like some practical tips on how do you foster culture of engagement and partnership if everything is remote?
Well, this is actually the biggest challenge for the leaders and for the managers, because all that we know about the human nature and the psychological safety shows that people need to belong. Actually, this is our major need as human beings. We really need to belong to something, to a concept, to a mission, to a team. So this is very difficult to create such space when you are only seeing people on the screen and you can hear each other's voice, but you're not really working together in a physical space. You're not going to the meetings together. You're not traveling, whatever type of work you're doing. So I think this is time when we will see true leaders, like natural leaders, taking responsibility for their teams, and I can see it happening also in my team. There is a great guy who actually created virtual breakfasts. Nobody asked him to do it, nobody expected it. He will not get additional promo for it, but it was his need. He was used to the fact that every morning he's having a breakfast with his team at our great Google office, where actually people discuss what are we doing today, what are the key challenges. They create sort of a plan for the day. And suddenly it was taken away from him. So actually he needed this connection and created a virtual breakfast every day at 9 o'clock for 30 minutes for the same group of people. And it's optional. People just take their muesli or yogurt or whatever they consume in their own kitchens. They connect from their phones and they do the same thing. They share, what are we doing today? What are your key challenges? Well, maybe we complain a little bit, maybe we laugh a little bit from things that happened recently. So I think the role of the executives will be to understand who are those natural leaders and give them tools, give them space, give them ability to drive these activities, initiatives in this digital culture. Because without that, people will be like robots. They will just deliver their tasks without engagement, without emotions, without this feeling of belonging. And that means without responsibility, without really taking care if what I did was valuable or not. And this is a very dangerous situation.
Well, you said about productivity going up during the lockdown, whatever it is. Last week we had a guest, Ben Waber from the US, and he deals with people analytics and the science of teams and forming high-performing teams. So one of the things he said is that these coffee machine conversations, the personal contact, the connection between the people that are just, sometimes they meet up, but sometimes it's a question of coincidence when they meet. That this is something that is absolutely necessary to form high-performing teams. And one of his ideas was that over time, we will see, in terms of new product development and new releases of products and services, that we will in fact see some kind of a long-term productivity drop because of the current situation. And would you agree with this?
I think, as I said a couple of minutes ago, with too much digital, there is less joy. And joy is necessary to keep you motivated. Like you really need to be motivated to increase your productivity and move your projects forward. If you're not motivated, you will simply spend less time and less energy on doing things. And actually those accidental meetings over a coffee in the micro kitchen or close to the printer are important part of this experience and an important part of the joy, because I'm smiling when I see a friend from work that I didn't see for a long time, and if I didn't schedule a call for us these days, I have no chance to see her. So sometimes, being in the office and getting these additional moments of joy is what also motivates us to go there, because we meet interesting people, we meet our friends, we meet people that we like. But I'm gonna show you another part of the digital experience, which we don't have in the physical offices, which is actually building this engagement. I'm super happy that actually what happened with COVID-19, we finally said goodbye to work-life balance. I was personally fighting with work-life balance for a couple of years now, and I kept on explaining to people that there's nothing like work-life balance. I mean, you cannot put a borderline between your work and your life, because actually there's no borderline. Like, you work in your life, and work is a important part of your life. But in a traditional model, it was seen as something sick. Like, people who are working too much were seen as like workaholics, people who are working too much, probably at the cost of their personal life. And the healthy model was like, you come back from work, you leave your smartphone in the garage, hopefully, and you only go back for that smartphone next morning, 8 a.m. Of course, we know it's not possible, like, because the decisions are being taken all the time. Some of your employees might be reaching out to you with a problem. They have a crisis to address, and they expect you to be for them when they need you. So if you're doing the right job, if you enjoy your job, actually, this is not a pain. This is something like part of your responsibility, part of your life. And with everything that is happening right now, people have nothing to put in between them and work. They are themselves, they're authentic. They're sitting in their own kitchen, they're sitting in the pajamas, they're having, flip-flops and their favorite coffee mug, not Rosenthal version, which they could probably have in a conference room. So we see them as they are, and we see them in their real version. Like yesterday, I was on a call with one of our top leaders who had a beautiful setup in his library, to see to look very professional. And suddenly, during the call, his son, maybe 3 or 4 years old, got to the room and started to bother him. And 3 months ago, it would be like, well, this is not professional. Like, this guy is not professional. These days, everyone is smiling and everyone feel, wow, great, he has this little boy. And we can see how he actually addressed this little boy and how he behaves. And thanks to that, we like him more. The emotional connection with this guy after such situation will be stronger than if he actually came to a town hall and, you know, gave a speech from the stage and then left for the airport. So I think there are pros building the culture and that relationship also in this digital space.
I think one of the things that people love about the current situation is the lack of necessity of commuting. And actually, when you travel so much, I've never sat at home for 6 weeks in a row, never ever, since I finished college. I was always traveling, and now, you know, it's a new experience. But one of the things is that sitting at home and having, of course, the kids with you and all the responsibilities, everything blends in smoothly and seamlessly, and it's fantastic. But on the other hand, you just never seem to put an end to it, because you work more actually when you sit at home, because there is never an end to work. Normally, when you physically were sitting in the office, at some point you just closed your laptop, and most of people took it with them, but others just said, okay, that's it. But it is also super stressful for people, because you have people challenging you, saying, okay, I'm going to use these weeks in quarantine to learn your language, and you're basically trying to struggle with your with your life as it is and not learn anything. So it has a downside.
Well, it depends whether you're measuring yourself, by your own measures, or you're taking the measures from outside. And I had the chat about it with my best friend last weekend, who's also a working mother. And now she's working from home, having, 2 kids, all the activities like cooking, cleaning, and everything you normally have to do at home. And everything is blended now, and everything is integrated. And you just, you have a choice between the calls, whether you will go to toilet or set up the washing machine. And many mothers need to integrate a lot of activities during the day. So she was telling me, I can't stand, this Instagram and Facebook posts anymore, because I see those beautiful pictures of people saying, I've already seen, all the series at Netflix, or I've read 25 books. I do yoga every morning for 2 hours, and I start to hate these people. But I think, that everyone is different, and probably people who put a lot of posts of that kind, they would be happy to exchange it for a crazy breakfast with pancakes and chocolate sauce, with kids laughing and running all around the kitchen. So the grass is always greener when we only look from the window. So my advice is, like, measure yourself with your own measures. Look at your life and your daily schedule from your own perspective, and ask yourself, would I actually like to change it? Is this something that I would like to see differently? If this is the case, then just change it. Then put a placeholder in your Teams calendar for 2 hours, since 7 to 9 a.m. And put, do not bother description on that placeholder, and do the yoga if this is what you're missing, because these days nobody will check it, and your manager will not come after you saying, like, Marta, why weren't you working between 7 and 9 a.m.? But he would rather ask you, are you okay? Are you comfortable? Is there anything I can do to help you feel better, Marta? So if you will tell him, you know what, I had to do yoga for 2 hours in the morning to actually get back to balance, he will say, great idea, Marta. Please continue doing that. So I really encourage everyone to actually take responsibility for how you feel. And if you need to do something differently, try it.
Okay, we have a good question here. So, considering that this is a revolution for online sales, what do you think could be the differentiator? What could be the main steps to adapt ourselves to the new era? We had there are companies that have been digital forever and since they were born, and there are companies that have been, I would say, a bit lagging behind on the digital revolution, and now they have to fast forward and do everything in a few weeks. And how does that work?
Well, that's a great question, and I spent more time writing also about it in the text I've shared. I think the brands with the biggest challenge are the premium brands, because when you were paying for the premium brand, you were often paying for this additional experience. So if you wanted to go to, I don't know, let's say Louis Vuitton shop, then you had to travel. There are limited number of shops. They are very exclusive. The shop assistant was probably earning more than you do, with all the professional know-how about how to make you feel that you're getting, you know, a purse that will change your life. So all these things were related with the value of the brand and giving you this unique premium experience. But, well, Marta, I'm sorry to ask you, but do you need a Louis Vuitton purse these days?
No, not really. No, not really.
So do you need like Manolo Blahnik shoes these days?
No, no.
What about, you know, a dress from Gucci? Like, do you have a place where you can wear it?
No. I don't think so.
Yeah, so actually, unfortunately, those premium brands are in troubles because not only you will not pay for the experience, but additionally, you have no place or opportunity to use them to impress others, to actually, you know, shine. Maybe you can make some posts of Instagram, but then people will ask, why is she putting, you know, these high heels when she's, you know, spending all day at home? So I think it's a filter that takes us back to real product value. And for us consumers, it's actually a good change, because we all know that you can buy a similar thing from, let's say, Reserved and maybe, I don't know, another brand. I don't want to spoil anybody's business. And the thing you buy from Reserved will be 30% of the price, even though it's a similar design, similar color, and a similar product. But for other reasons, for this premium experience, you would be buying another brand. So we're going back to the product value. And I think as a result of this, the cost structure will also change, because there will be less shops in the Fifth Avenues of this world. And actually in internet, there's nothing like Fifth Avenue. There is a cheap storage somewhere in the middle of the fields, and it costs close to zero. So for us consumers, I think we're gonna get higher quality products that will be matching us better for much lower price. And one of the key drivers of making business in the past, which was location, is gone forever. Like location is not the king anymore, but product quality and the usefulness of this product is suddenly the most important.
Okay, next futuristic question. Based on your experience, what are the biggest changes a company should accomplish to be successful in this change of paradigm? HR, marketing, product, sales? Well, we want to know.
The answer is already in that question, and I think, you know, the structure of the answer is the right one. It's all about the people. Like it's the people who change the processes, it's people who change the culture, it's people who do things differently. So the key leaders will focus on people in the next months. Will try to create a safe space for their teams to experiment, to do a number of activities differently, and try to define the successful model for the future. Because everyone is worried about their job safety these days, and people are worried about their future and about their financial security. So people are motivated more than ever before I actually think that during last 30 days, we couldn't see, that willingness to actually sacrifice, to work harder, to actually commit to things. So I think many employees will be fighting to keep their businesses out of bankruptcy. Many CEOs or employers will be surprised how amazingly people behave these days to actually support the company in difficult moment. And it's up to them what they will do with that energy, whether they will turn their employees to committed people who actually create a team that they trust, or they would like to go back to the old days, with hierarchical structure organizations where nobody trusts you, but you are expected to deliver your scope of job. I think these organizations will go out of business, and people capital, people talents, how we behave, how we interact will be the critical assets of the future.
Okay, I have one. Today, by coincidence, is the World Day of Health and Safety at Work. We are a safety-driven company. One of the things you run Google Cloud, and people have started to ask questions about, because the more we go digital, the more data, the more, as our last week's presenter told us, digital breadcrumbs. I love that expression. So we leave all these digital breadcrumbs and they are collected, and yes, shopping is smarter and it's good for us, but there's the part where people are actually afraid of sharing their data and what is going to happen to them, and some kind of a loss of privacy. So what do you think about that?
Well, this is still a choice. This is still a choice, and there are still options not to be present in the digital world and be disconnected, and this is a choice that everyone has and has to take at some stage. There are two different aspects of it. One of it is, of course, the productivity and efficiency area, where we actually save time, save money, we do things better, everything is constantly improving. And this is what is happening with our influence and without our influence, because every click you make at Frisco shop is teaching Frisco about your habits and what you like and what you don't like. But then the second aspect is around privacy. And this is very individual thing, because some people actually don't have a problem with the fact that they exist in the digital world as they exist in a physical world. And when we see the younger generations who actually are digital natives, born in the internet even before they started to consciously interact with the internet, their sense of privacy and their needs around it are very different. So I think we still have a chance to protect our privacy. I try to do it. I share in the internet only consciously things that I want to share, and I don't share things that I think that are my own. So I think instead of sitting and thinking, well, someone is spying me and someone is trying to get information about me, we should all try to build the skills around it, how to protect your privacy, how to actually manage your firewalls, which information do you want to share, how you want to share them, what do you do to actually protect yourself. I think this is a moment when this is also redefining, because we see it in many countries these days. There are a number of apps that are informing people about, who is infected and who is not infected. And a couple of months ago, people in places like Israel or South Korea would treat it as something wrong, like, if you get alert on your phone that within 10 meters from you there is someone with COVID-19, you will feel very bad about it. But these days, people actually benefit from it. So the social acceptance to share data for better is much higher. If you also look at services like, let's say, Google Maps, or let's take Spotify or Netflix, I think, you know, it shows you that if you're sharing data about your location and other people do it as well, you can avoid traffic jams, and you can get to the place where you're going faster. So it's all about making sure that this is anonymous and nobody has access to the data that you actually don't want to share. But all the technology companies are super careful about it. There are policies about it, and everyone actually can find information about where his data is, who has access to it, and what's happening to the data.
Okay, so we're almost out of time. So because when this is over is a positive series in essence, a positive closing remark from you. So when this is over, what is going to stay with us? What is the good part? What is the good part of this horrific experience?
We are learning much faster, and we are experimenting much faster. So we will have much more digital and online experience when this is over. And it would be great if people also understood that actually data is not a scarce resource that some companies have and some others not. But data is more like a solar energy, like, you know, something that everyone can benefit from, whether you're a small business, whether you are a big enterprise, whether you're a private person. If you will find a way to identify the data that can make your life better, can help you do things differently, you will simply get more benefits. So try to think about data like, you know, it's unlimited, for free, available for everyone, and can make everything you do more productive and better constantly. So I really believe that things will be smarter in the future.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you today. To finish this off, thank you, Magda. Thank you to our participants. And today is the World Day of Health and Safety at Work, which we're not going to celebrate today. We're going to celebrate it next week because we have a new webinar coming next Tuesday, May the 5th at 17 hours CET. We'll have our own safety guru from ITURRI, Dani Rivera, and he's going to have two guests, Dr. Joseph Hitt and Dr. Ulf Schneider. Dr. Schneider is the director of the medical and biotech section at Fraunhofer IPA in Stuttgart, and he has a highly interdisciplinary biomechanics department. And Joseph Hitt is the CEO of GoX Studios and GoX Labs. They develop wearables and robotic technologies that enhance health performance and quality of life of people. And what they will talk about, of course, is safety when this is over. Thank you so much, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.